By March 31st, restrictions apply. Parading concerts, select nights.
Let's get ready to mortgage. He is the prince of programs, guru of guidelines, master of matrices. He puts the fun in funding. Please welcome Mark, Mr. Mortgage Eitel.
All right, so we are back. I love that intro. I don't know whether I'm supposed to come out swinging or it kind of reminds me of the Chicago Bulls intro too. So anyway, I love that that walkout music, if you will. So, hey, just to finish up the thought on the Federal Reserve and the secondary mortgage market, that confuses a lot of people. And what I wanted to share is that during the pandemic, the Federal Reserve stepped in and they bought the majority of mortgage-backed securities. And I don't want to geek out or bore you with the technicalities of this, but basically what happens when mortgages are originated and funded, they're bundled, they're then sold to Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. And at that point, they're bundled into mortgage-backed securities and they're sold on the secondary market, which allows Fannie and Freddie the liquidity to buy additional mortgages, which passes the liquidity back to the lender and allows another mortgage to be originated. When the Fed was the primary buyer of the secondary, the mortgage-backed securities on the secondary market, that supported an artificially low interest rate environment because they were not concerned with the rate so much as they were with flooding the market with liquidity to keep us from crashing into a recession or, God forbid, a depression. So the biggest effect that their policy shift has had is they're not going to buy the mortgage-backed securities as they have. So that's going to require a normalizing, if you will, of the secondary market. So other buyers, including foreign investment, is going to have to come back in and take their place. And because of that, it's widely believed that interest rates are going to have to come up to make those purchases more attractive for those investors. So if anyone wants to geek out on that, contact me. I'll be happy to share any insight that I have and possibly learn some valuable information from you. But anyway, that was a significant change of late, and the Fed tapering down their purchasing. Their balance sheet adjustments are definitely affecting interest rates. So we're going to jump into some questions. We got our very first question here. This is interesting. I hear this one a lot in this market. Should I waive my appraisal to make my offer better? And I don't know who sent this in. You didn't sign your name, but 8814 is the last four digits of your mobile number. So yeah, thanks for that question. Great question. Waiving your appraisal to make your offer better. We're seeing a lot of that. Interestingly enough, if you're getting a mortgage, you have to have an appraisal because your lender has determined that they're going to loan you a percentage. And for argument's sake, let's say that percentage is 80%. You qualify for an 80% loan on a $400,000 purchase, just to use round numbers for this conversation. So waiving the appraisal in your offer is telling the seller that you want to buy the house no matter what it appraises for. However, we still have to perform an appraisal as a mortgage company or as lenders because we have to determine the value of the asset, which is going to then determine what that percentage actually is in dollars. So to use that $400,000 example, grab my handy dandy calculator. Let's say that $400,000 house only appraises for $390 because you were aggressive in your offer, or perhaps they were aggressive in their pricing. So if you are qualified for a 80% loan in this example, now that 80% is going to be based on the $390,000 amount, which makes your loan, or your $390,000 value, which brings your loan amount down to $312,000. So in that instance, if you still proceed with the contract, you're going to have to bridge that gap, but you are going to be required to have an appraisal because that determines the actual amount of the loan. The percentage that you're qualified for is based on the appraisal or the purchase price, whichever is less, which is often confusing. So waiving the appraisal sounds, sexy in this environment, but as lenders, we're still required to perform an appraisal. And it just saddens me that we're in such an environment where buyers feel the need to be so aggressive that they're paying more than something is deemed to be worth today. And I understand that, in this rapidly appreciating cycle that, oftentimes time is the savior and the appreciation absorbs that overpayment, if you will. And, everybody's happy on the other side of this. But in a slower appreciation cycle, it's going to take much longer to recoup that overage, if you will. But I do also understand that in this environment, people are getting aggressive with their offers. So to answer your question, should you waive the appraisal? The answer is that's up to you. Do you want to buy the house regardless of the value? And are you prepared to bridge that gap? From a lender's standpoint, even if you waive the appraisal in your offer, we're still going to need to perform that appraisal to determine the actual loan amount. And that's often an interesting conversation that we have as lenders with listing agents, because when we call to schedule the appraisal, it's often with the listing agent as they have access to the property and access to the seller's schedule. And their common response is, well, the buyer waived their appraisal, so there doesn't need to be one. And, we just spend a few minutes to walk them through the explanation that I just gave you, that we do need one in the sense of determining a loan amount. So to answer your question, should you waive the appraisal, I'm going to leave that in your hands. Hopefully that explanation of why a lender needs an appraisal makes sense and is helpful. And if you want to elaborate on that, you can visit the website, Mr.Mortgage, and hit the contact us box and fill out the question and I'll be happy to answer your question off air on that, or get you more information if you need it. So I appreciate that question. So yeah, waiving the appraisal, I'm leaving that one in your hands. We've seen people that have been hurt by it and people who have not been hurt by it. So crazy times that we're in. Also, too, if you're an agent, you know that the contract changes that went into effect November 1st, the new FAR contract in Florida. Well, Florida's the Florida Association of Realtors is FAR. So if you're listening to this outside of Florida, this is irrelevant. But the Florida contract was modified and it went into effect November 1st to include a finance contingency requiring an appraisal to be received and accepted by the lender. So another confusing point in this market is the contract change, because it requires us as lenders to have not only performed the appraisal, but to have received it. So two different reasons for an appraisal there. One is the determination of value for you as the buyer and your willingness to proceed regardless of the value. And then the second is, as I mentioned, for us as lenders to determine the actual amount of the loan. So just remember, the loan approval is a percentage of appraisal or purchase price, whichever's less. So hopefully you found that helpful. I know we get that question quite often in this market, and it's a sticky one. But if appreciation keeps at this pace, then paying a few $1,000s over may not be an issue. But your lender is going to require an appraisal to determine the actual loan amount. So keep that in mind. And we're going to come back after this break and answer some more of your questions. In the meantime, if you have questions, feel free to text them into the text line, which is 561-291-8569, 291-8569, or visit the website, Mr.Mortgage, and hit the Contact Us button. We'll be right back.
Well, hello, Winn-Dixie.
Bro, Winn-Dixie is bringing prices down on tons of our favorite groceries every season.
That's right. These prices are down and staying down.
That's why every price that's down has a red hand pointing down at it.
Ooh, like over there.
And there.
Oh, and right there.
Prices are down everywhere. We're getting all these savings and more across the entire store with Winn-Dixie Rewards.
Winn-Dixie. It's a win-win. See store for details.